Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. There's a couple of things to talk about today, isn't there? Jay Retcher riding solo today. Ronnie D is out. He will be back tomorrow. Appreciate everybody for tuning in today. Lots of Lightning hockey talk ahead. A slew of guests, a cavalcade of stars if you must. Also, first day of Bucks OTAs. Very excited about that. Rays back in action today at Tropicana Field against the hated Boston Red Sox after a well-deserved day off yesterday. The Rays with a pretty good road trip looking back on that. So, of course, we'll be talking to Mark Topkin about that at 2:15 later on today. Trey Downey on the other side of the glass. He's the first voice you'll hear when you call in and join in on the conversation today because, of course, we want to hear from you today. If you were up late last night, and I'm sure a lot of you were, and following along on Twitter and as well on Facebook, at 620 WDA, we had a nice little vent session last night at about 10:55, and at times we had almost 100 people on there. We had 2,500 people watching that video last night overall, and you guys were none too happy about the outcome, and I tell you what, I can't blame you. It was a rough go of it for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and just kind of looking at how the game went last night, right off the bat, and there was a text here on the Simpson Air DAE text line, you knew right from the beginning things weren't going well when Steven Stamkos passes up a shot on that 3-on-2. And still, that boggles my mind how a guy in the mid-90s, upper 90s, when it comes to miles per hour, how a guy like that doesn't look to shoot every single time he gets inside the blue line. You see Ovechkin do it. It's mind-boggling to see why, I can't understand why Stamkos doesn't have that same kind of thought process in his head. But just an overall dominating performance by the Washington Capitals last night. What a physical game. I think they out-hit the Lightning. What was it, 39-20? It was just crazy to see how one team was playing so desperate, like it was their last game of the season if they lost, with their backs against the wall. And they say that, man, you back an animal into a corner like that, and sometimes they come out clawing and scratching and fighting, and that's exactly what happened last night. And led by the great eight, Alexander Ovechkin, didn't get on the score sheet with a goal, but my goodness, that guy was hitting everything that came his way. Whew, man, that was something else. That was some game last night. Luckily and fortunately for the Tampa Bay Lightning, they do have a little bit of a safety net, and that's Game 7. That'll be tomorrow night at Amalie Arena, 8 o'clock. Remember, you can hear that up the dial on our sister station, 970 WFLA. And the thing that, watching that game last night and watching, who wasn't playing so well, it's weird to see that the best players on the Lightning seem to have played the worst. And I posed that question on Twitter last night, and a lot of people seem to agree with that. Victor Hedman, I don't know what he was doing last night. There was times where he just didn't seem like he cared to keep the puck in the zone. And when he did keep the puck in the zone, it was a puck going off the shin guard of another player, and it went out of the zone. And then Nikita Kucherov, I mean, you want to talk about a lack of effort on back checking. That didn't look good. Steven Stamkos, his play along the boards, that looked like the Steven Stamkos from the beginning of the playoffs. I mean, you look at those three guys, I understand. I understand if your best players, at this time of year, you need your best players to play your best, yes. But if your best players are playing their worst, I mean, you could argue that those were the three worst players on the ice last night for the Lightning. How do you expect to win a game on the road, a Game 6 elimination game like that, with those guys playing as poorly as they did? It was ugly. Mm-hmm. You're right, and it's crazy too because we talked about this yesterday of the response from the team after Game 5 when they won. And Trey, you were in there with me as well inside the locker room, and they said all the right things. I liked their body language. They knew, hey, we're going to go up there. It's going to be a Game 6, but we're going to treat it like it's the most important game of this series. We have unfinished business. They sold me a bill of goods, man, and I bought it hook, line, and sinker. And then they went up there, and it was a stinker. It just, man, I can't believe they got dominated that poorly. And that kind of leads us to our poll question today. What is to blame? What is the biggest reason why the Lightning lost in Game 6? And then there's some people, after putting up the poll, they're saying all the above. But number one, Bolt Stars didn't show up, just what we just alluded to. Two, bad refereeing. I think there's questionable calls on both sides in pretty much every playoff game. There was a lot of people upset with that refereeing, whether it was a no tripping call, whether it was that icing call that wasn't called on that second goal by DSP, where Coburn looked like he outskated Stevenson, but they didn't give it to him. Three, no coaching adjustments, whether it was a lack of, I guess, you didn't instill any kind of jolt into this team either before the game, getting them prepared, or as the game went on. Or four, were the Caps just the better team? So that's up on our Twitter page, 620WDAE, also up on our Facebook page at 620WDAE. We'll keep the conversation going there as well. So if you want to join in on the conversation, Hillsborough 990, Pinellas 461, toll free 888-546-4620, or as always, you can hit us up on the Simpson Air DAE text line. Start your text with DAE, send them over to 82945. Here's one at the top here from the 727. Hedman and Stamkos both seem like they were just trying to be too careful. Got to play with more attack and jump in Tampa Bay. You could say that they played not to lose instead of playing to win. I thought that was that's a fair assessment in my opinion. And then you look, and there was opportunities. That's what's so frustrating. And we talk about this after the game too. It's not this that they lost; it's how they lost. They got dominated. They got beat from pillar to post, and there was and the score wasn't even out of hand. I mean, it was a 1-0 game for that second period and going into the third. And I felt like at the beginning of the third period, when you're watching that game, Washington left their foot off the gas for about 5 minutes in the beginning of the third, and the Lightning were starting to make a little bit of a push. And I said, man, they're so close, because you knew last night if the Lightning scored a goal, it was a whole different ball game. Doubt could have crept into the team's mind, or you would have heard it in the stands. There would have been moans and groans, and there would have been that cheering would have turned into a kind of a jeering. But Braden Holtby was another reason why the Capitals did such a great job last night. Every single time he saw the puck, they made some deflections. He made some good saves there. He was dominant. He was out in front of that goal crease. He was in my opinion, the best player on the ice last night. And the only way that I thought the Bolts were going to score is if they got traffic in front of him, and they didn't do that. They didn't get enough traffic in front, and they didn't get enough shots on net. Good point.
He kept this team in the game, and he almost did kind of what he did in Game 4 and, kind of stole a game again. It could have stole a series when the Lightning were getting outplayed, and he just didn't get back up tonight. And when you have a goalie like that who's playing at his best, you really need to back him up and win that game, because this could have easily been, like you said, a 1-1 game that went into overtime, and then once you go into overtime, really anything can happen.
You're right, and that's what I was expecting. That's what I'm saying. The 1-0, everybody, even in the first period, it was 0-0 after one. The Lightning were right in there, even though I thought they were getting outplayed. Second period, they get the Oshie goal and the power play. Eventually, they were going to break through. But yeah, I know there was a call before then where, it could have been the other way around. The too many men on the ice penalty. That wasn't called. I know there was bad calls either way, but you have to be able to persevere through that, regardless of what the penalty situation was like. The Lightning didn't score at all. So they had to get on the board somehow, and they just weren't able to do that. It was just they were outplayed. They were out-hustled. They were out-efforted, and you can't do that in the playoffs. And we talked about it with Erik Erlendsson yesterday. It's not always just a switch on and off. It's a dial, and they dialed it way down yesterday. And I think some of the things that are good about this Tampa Bay Lightning team is that their play is contagious. That's on a good way and also on a bad way, because when they're going good, it seems like everybody's contributing. But when they're going bad, when you see a lack of effort and a lack of hustle and your best players playing their worst in the most important game of the year so far, God, that's so disheartening. And then you even have players like Yanni Gourde. I'll get to this text here from the 813 in a second. Yanni Gourde, I thought they did a great. There's one shift that he had I thought was a microcosm of his kind of play in this series. He did a great job of keeping the puck in the zone for about 30, 35 seconds, pretty much on his own. And then, boom, he turns the puck over right at the blue line instead of dumping the puck in deep, and then it goes back the other way. So for Yanni in this series, it's been like 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. So here's a text here on the Simpson Air DA text line. I say put Conacher in for Gord. He's been bad. Also, Strawman just watch pucks go by and just let the Caps take it. No challenge. Do you make a move? Do you make a move in the lineup? John Cooper and the coaching staff have kind of shied away from making those drastic moves. They've kind of played the even keel. Let the team kind of refocus, get back into it. Game 7. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't make a move because that's not their modus operandi of this playoff so far. But hey, you got to do something. You have to do something to put a little jolt in his team. And Anton Strawman, I get you, man. Because to me, he's one of the more solid defensemen, not just on this team, but in the entire NHL. And he just looks a step off. There's just something wrong with him. He's just not moving at the same speed as everybody else. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 Mm-hmm.
But I think if they get back to what they did just a couple of days ago, we're talking about an entirely different thing, and we're talking about the Lightning going on to play Vegas after tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's funny too because you were talking about, we're all talking about how important or lack of importance for home ice advantage, but I think now you look in the last 2 games, home ice, man, you get that final change, you get that motivation from the crowd. The Lightning fed off it in Game 5, Washington fed off it in Game 6, and I think the Bolts will need to feed on it in Game 7. All right, more Bolts talk when we come back. Remember, the 2 greatest words in sports, Game 7. It's happening tomorrow night at Amalie Arena. How confident are you that the Bolts will get this thing done? We'll discuss next. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for me. Appreciate everybody watching. I'll be on until 3 p.m. Ronnie D is out today. I'm riding solo, so make sure you keep watching, keep listening. 620 WDAE here locally, or listen on the iHeartRadio app, 620WDAE.com/listen. Thanks a lot. See you later.